Continuing where I left off. When she had said all this, she dropped it to earth in a shuddering wind. From the dark underworld, home of the Furies, she aroused Alecto, grief's drear mistress, with her lust for war, for angers, ambushes, and crippling crimes. Even her father Pluto hates this figure, even her hellish sisters, for her myriad faces, for her savage looks, her head alive and black with snakes. Now Juno spoke to excite her. Here is a service all your own that you can do for me, daughter of night. Here is a way to help me to make sure my status and renown will not give way or be impaired, and that Aeneas people cannot by marriage win Latinus over, laying siege to Italy. You can arm for combat brothers of one soul between them, twist homes with hatred, bring your whips inside, or firebrands of death. 1,000 names belong to you, 1,000 ways of wounding. Shake out the folded stratagems within you, break up this peace pack, scattered acts of war. All in a flash let men desire, demand, and take up arms. Without delay, Atletico, dripping venom deadly at the Gorgons, passed into Latium first, and the high hall of the Laurentine king. She took her place on the still threshold of the queen, Amata, burning already at the Trojans' coming, the plans for Turnus' marriage broken off. Amata tossed it and turned with womanly anxiety and anger. Now the goddess plucked one of the snakes, her gloomy tresses, and tossed it at the women, sent it down her bosom to her midriff and her heart, so that by this black reptile driven wild she might disrupt her whole house. And the serpent, slipping between her gown and her smooth breast, went writhing on through imperceptible to the favored woman's touch or sight, and breathed viper's breath into her. The sinuous mass became her collar of twisted gold, became the ribbon of her headdress. In her hair it twined itself and slid around her body, while the infection first, like dew of poison fallen on her, pervaded all her senses, netting her bones in fire, though still her soul had not responded fully to the flame. She spoke out softly, quite like any mother, shedding hot tears at the marriage of her child to a Phrygian. These Trojan refugees, father, are they to take away Lavinia in marriage? Have you no pity for your daughter? None for yourself? No pity for her mother? Who will be left alone by the faithless man, the rover going to sea at the first north wind with a girl for booty? Was that not the way to Phrygian shepherd, enter Lacedaemon, and carry Helen off to Troy's far city? What of your Solomon word, your years of love for your own people, your right hand so often given to Turnus, our bloodkin? Suppose a son of foreign stock is to be found for Latins, and this holds, and the command your father, Faunus, gave weighs hard upon you, then I maintain that every separate country, free from all rule of ours, is foreign land. And this is what the gods mean. Turnus, too, if we seek origins, had Anarchus and Arcrisius as forbears at Massene. Finding Latinus proof against this plea, and holding firm while in her viscera the serpent's evil madness circulated, suffusing her, the poor queen, now inflamed by prodigies of hell, went wild indeed, and with insane abandon roamed the city. One sees at times a top that a wound-up thong snapped into a spin, when all eyes for the sport. Boys drive it round a court in a great circle, sweeping curves on the ground, flicked by the whip, while the small boys in fascination bend above the rounded boxwood at its whirls, given new life at each stroke of the lash. So restless, wheeling like a spinning top, Amata sped on, driven through the town amid her hardy townsmen. Worst, she feigned Bacchic possession, daring a greater sin and greater madness. Off to the woods she ran, into the leafy hills, and hid her child to snatch a marriage from the Teucrians, or to postpone the wedding. Evoe, Bacchus, she shrilled out, and then cried again, that you alone, the god, deserved the girl, who held an ivy thysaris in your honor, and danced for you, and let her hair grow long, sacred to you. As word of this went round, Laurentine mothers, fired by sudden madness, felt the same passion to acquire new homes. They left the old ones, bearing to the wind their necks and hair, while some in false-skin dress filled heaven with long quavering cries, and bore vine-covered wand spears in their midst. The queen held up a blazing firebrand of pine, and her fever sang the marriage hymn for Turnus and her daughter, glancing round with bloodshot eyes. She called out suddenly and savagely, Mothers of Latium, listen, wherever you may be. If your good hearts feel any kindness still for poor Amata, any concern for justice to a mother, shake your headbands loose, take up the revel, along with me. To this extreme she went, in the wild wood, the wilderness of beast, driven by Alecto with a Bacchic goad. When to the Fury's mind the first mad fit had been whipped up enough, seeing Latinus, consul, subverted and his home undone, Alecto rose up on her somber wings, and flew straight to the bold Rutulian's walls, the city which, they say, Danae founded, with her Acrisian colonist, blown there by gale winds from the south. Andria once, our early fathers called the place, and still the great name stands, though Andria's fortune waned. In his high dwelling there, in darkest night, Turnus peacefully slept. Alecto stripped her savage mask off and her fury shape to take on an old woman's face. She lined her forehead with deep seams, put on white hair and headband, twining there a shoot of olive. So she became Calibe, thrown in age, to Juno and a priestess of her temple. Moving near, before the young man's eyes, she wielded it. Turnus, can you bear to see so many efforts wasted, split like water, and your own rule made over to the Dardan colonists? The king withholds your bride, withholds the dowry that you fought and bled for. Go into danger and be laughed at for it. Mow down the Tuscan ranks. Shelter the Latins under your peace pact. So, these messages, while you lay in the stillness of the night, Saturn's almighty daughter ordered me herself to bring before you. Come then, put your young troops under arms, glory in arms, prepare a sortie and a fight. These fragrant captains in their camp on our fine river, give them a burning, burn their painted ships. Great force in heaven demands it. Let the king Latinus too, unless he undertake to yield your bride and keep his word. Let him feel this, and feel at last the fear of meeting Turnus in arms. Now, making light of her, the young man gave his answer to the seer. News of the squadron making port on Tiber has not failed, as you think, to reach my ears. Do not imagine me afraid. Queen Juno has not forgotten me. But old age, mother, sunk in decay, and too far gone for truth, is giving you this useless agitation, mocking your prophet's mind with dreams of fear and battles between kings. Your mind should be on the gods' images and on their shrines. Men will make war and peace as men should do. Being so dismissed, Alecto blazed in wrath, and sudden trembling ran through the man's body, even as he spoke, his eyes in a rigid stare, for now the fury hissed with all her serpents, all her hideous faces, glancing round with eyes of flame, as the man's faltering tongue tried to say more. She threw him back and raised it, a pair of snakes out of her writhing hair, then cracked her whip and railed it at him. Look at me now, sunk in decay. See how old age in me is too far gone for truth, deluding me with battles between kings and dreams of fear. Look at these dreams of mine. I come to you from the Black Sisters' home, and bring war and extinction in my hand. With this she hurled a torch and planted it below the man's chest, smoking with hellish light. Enormous terror woke him. A cold sweat broke out all over him and soaked his body. Then, driven wild, shouting for arms, he ransacked house and chamber. Lust of steel raged in him, brute insanity of war, and wrath above all, as when fiery sticks are piled with a loud crackling by the side of a cauldron boiling, and the water heaves and seethes inside the vessel, steaming up with foam and bubbling higher, till the surface holds no more, and vapor mounts to heaven. So, then, in violation of the peace, he told the captains of his troops to march on King Latinus, ordering arms prepared it, the land defended, and the enemy pushed it back from the frontiers. He, too, would come, a match for Trucians and Latins both. His orders given, vows made to the gods, his countrymen cheered one another on, and vied with one another to make war. This one, admiring Turnus' Prince Linus, his figure and his youth. This one, the king's, his ancestors. This one, his feats afield. While Turnus filled these men with recklessness, Alecto beat her way on Stygian wings, coastward to Trojans with a fresh design, surveying that wild region on the shore where shining Iülus trapped or hunted. Here the virgin of the wailing underworld brought sudden frenzy on the hounds. She touched their nostrils with a long familiar scent, so they would run a stag hot on the track. This the first cause of turmoil, kindly hearts of country folk to war. There was a stag, a beauty, with a giant spread of antlers, taken before weaning from a doe, and brought up tame by boys as by their father, Taurus, the chief herdsman to the king, and warden of his wide estates. Their sister, Silvia, had trained the beast with love to do her bidding. She would wreath his horns with garlands, groom him, bathe him in a spring of limpid water, placid under her hand, accustomed to the table of her mistress. The stag would roam the forest, then return, however, late at night, to the gate he knew. Now, as he wandered far from home, the hounds of Aeolus on the hunt, furiously barking, started the stag. He had been floating down a river, keeping cool by the green bank. Aeneas himself, now on the chase, and passionate for the honor of the kill, let fly a shaft from his bent bow. Alecto's guidance did not fail his hand, or let him shoot amiss, and the arrow whizzing loud whipped on to piece the belly and the flank. Mortally hurt, the swift deer made for home in the farm buildings. Groaning, he found his stall, and coated with dark blood, he filled the house with piteous cries, as though imploring mercy, hugging her shoulders, beating with her hands. The sister Sylvia raised a cry for help, calling her tough countrymen, who came soon unexpectedly, for the pitiless fiend in the silent wood lay hidden. One was armed with a burnt-out brand, one with a knotted cudgel, each with whatever weapon angered first, put in his groping hand. Herdsmen for war were rounded up by Tyrus, breathing furiously, armed with an axe, for he had chanced to be splitting an oak 4 ways with driven wedges. Now the fierce goddess, from her lookout post, judging the time for further harm had come, flapped to the stable roof, and from the peak sounded the herdsman call. On her curved horn she sent into the air a blast from hell, at which all groves were set at once a-tremble, and the deep forest rang and rang again. The lake of Trivia heard it, far away. So did the river Nar, whose current pales with sulphur, and Valenius of the springs, and frightened mothers held their children close. Then, truly at the sound, the signal given by that diet trumpet, weaponed and on the run from every quarter, farmers and foresters came together. Trojans' troops as well poured from the camp through open gates to bring Aeneas aid, and both sides formed for battle. No longer now a shindy of country boys, with fire-hardened stakes and oaken clubs, but darkening on a wide field they contended, with two-edged steel, like standing crops in ranks, a bristle with drawn swords and armor shining, struck by the sun and flashing to the clouds, as when under a squall the waves begin to whiten, and the sea, minute by minute, heaves and increases as the swells go higher, till from its depths it surges to the sky. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching this video or hearing it while you're doing whatever you're doing. You can give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, leave a comment, subscribe if you like, or just do nothing like always, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.